Welcome back to another episode of the Lofty Lenders Homebuyer Education, where we explore tips, tricks, and stories that can help you plan for your next home purchase. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a move-up buyer, an investor, or just looking to learn, we hope you gain a little bit of knowledge today. Today, we are talking about something we're seeing a little bit more of recently. And looking at what I've got in my pipeline, Charlie, I'm seeing buyers are moving here from out of state.
It is absolutely crazy. I think we've actually, last 2, 3, 4 years. It has been amazing to see because everybody used to go away from Iowa. You stay here, grow up here, graduate, and leave. But I'm with you. Our pipelines are a lot of people either moving back or moving here for the first time. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what I've got. I've got a veteran moving in. I have a gentleman who's just getting back from the military, which, this was his home before, but he's coming back. I got somebody from Connecticut. So you and I were just talking about before the episode how we're not really seeing many out in the northeast corner, but we've got a couple from Connecticut that are coming in, a couple from Chicago, really working with a lot of people from out of town. And, that money kind of goes a little bit further here than it does in Chicago or New Haven, Connecticut.
Well, even Minnesota. I mean, I just played golf 2 weeks ago with a guy that was amazed at how cheap the golf course was to join. And here I thought, we've gone up a lot. Because when I joined, we didn't have to pay to join. You got to pay your bill. But they're paying lots. It was 5, now it's 10. New guys are 15,000. I'm like, that's a lot. And he would convert that to 100,000 to join up in the Minneapolis suburbs. And I'm like, wow, okay. We can't really get a house around here for 100 grand. Maybe if you get lucky, it needs a lot of work, but that's a chunk of change. So yeah, as much as I think us here in Iowa see the prices have gone up a little bit, just like everybody else, we've gone up, but we're still proportionally a lot of space, great quality of life for a lesser price. And I mean, you've just recently been going through all your house stuff. Did you have many people comment on your viewers? Are they from out of state or were they from around, or did you even know any details?
Yeah, I don't really know any details. I didn't really notice, but I was doing some research about this episode before we got started today. And technically, I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this, but technically Iowa and Nebraska both have seen more people move out than move in over the last year. And that's according to a couple of the bigger studies out there, United Van Lines and Atlas Van Lines. Iowa ranks as among the top outbound states nationally, and so did Nebraska. However,
and we always did. It's just that was something we saw as a switch. That's interesting.
Well, and part of that, I think, has always been a lot of people when they retire, they move down to Florida because you don't have a state income tax. Well, now Iowa has just reversed that rule, right? So now, as of last year, as of 2025, seniors are going to stick around.
It's a lot more advantageous. Again, that's I'm starting to get more people that I talk to that are retiring. We'll get there someday. But it is kind of fun to see that they don't have to move out of state. I mean, the cold weather still gets a lot of people, but we have great seasons, and Florida and Arizona are just really hot. So yeah, it is kind of cool not to have to move just for a tax reason. So.
Yep. So a lot of that growth is landing in the metro areas. I saw a number that said Waukee grew 46% in the last 5 years. That's just insane. And I mean, if you drive out to Waukee, you can tell it grew a lot over the last few years. So Ankeny is up to 14% in the last 5 years, 6 years now. And they're over 77,000 people. And Omaha has also added another 25,000 residents. So we're looking at these areas where there's a lot more populace and a lot of growth is happening in those areas. You also start looking in the country and you notice, that family farm is for sale. That family farm is for sale. These century-old family farms are starting to go away. And it's really kind of sad. I mean, I love that, you and I help people get homes and get into a new house. But I also look at all the farm ground that's being torn up to put houses up. And you don't see a lot of houses being torn down and put in more farm ground.
No. There's a lot to be said for, we love our rural, and everybody moves because they like where you're at. I mean, you're not totally out of town, but you're not totally in the fields. You don't have to go on miles of gravel. So you get country, larger plots, bigger spaces between your neighbors, but you still have some neighbors and you've got amenities that are within reason. But then it gets more populous. I mean, I grew up in Waukee when we had 15 minutes of cornfields before you hit Windsor Heights, West Des Moines. It was a good chunk, and that's nowhere near that anymore. And even going from Waukee to Adel is just nuts. So it is a little sad on the farm side, but I think that's why everybody likes what we've got. But the family farms are hard to maintain when you break up amongst the kids and then the grandkids. Nobody wants to drive the tractors anymore. Well, I mean, I'd love to go drive the tractors.
Yeah. I mean, if you pay me a lot of money to do it, I'll do it. Yeah, absolutely. It's just functionally farmers. I mean, Some farmers make a lot of money, not a lot. Not a lot of farmers do. So I think part of the reason that we're seeing a lot of those people moving into town is obviously the affordability issue, right? So you think about somebody who makes $150,000 in San Francisco. Well, that's really the numbers that I'm seeing are $68,000 worth of real purchasing power out there when you adjust for all the expenses that you have in San Francisco. You bring that out to Des Moines, you're buying way more house. You're buying a nice home with a $150,000 salary. It looks like home prices are 25 to 30% cheaper in the Midwest than they are on the coast. And the cost of living is 10 to 15% lower. So all those things really just improve the affordability and make it a reason for people that, want to move to this area. They can afford a lot more house, especially when we talk about the people that are older and they are retiring and they're moving into town. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of people coming into town and they're buying some really nice houses because, again, they're coming from out of state. They maybe owned a house for 20, 30 years. They had grown this thing to a lot of equity. One couple moving up from Kansas City that, they bought it for a couple $100,000. And then just because of where they're at and they were close enough to the city that the city grew out to them, they can sell that thing for over $1 million and they use all that money to put down on the new purchase. They can buy a massive house. I don't know why you need that house when you get to be older, but maybe you can have a really nice smaller house. Maybe that's what you go for.
I've actually been amazed at that because we expect to see some downsides. Get your kids out and okay, great. Well, now that you have a lot of those seniors that aren't going to Florida and Arizona and they're keeping a small something here and doing their bigger down there because that's where they're going to spend most of their time. Now you get it towards like, well, I'll just buy the big house here. And like, well, I don't think I'd want to clean all that if all my kids are gone.
Right.
But, they've got the investment portfolio and the wealth is there. So more power to them. If you got dollar for dollar, you tend to get a pretty good deal here compared to a lot of other bigger cities that get a lot more notoriety, even though it's pretty awesome. Des Moines gets a lot of notoriety for our population size. We really like to top out the charts in availability and just quality of life. It's pretty cool.
And there was a study done a few years ago. They said by the year 2040, they were hoping to get to 1 million people in the metro. And I think we're well on our way. I don't know what the number is right now in the census report, but we are definitely well on our way. On top of the affordability piece, there looked like there's maybe a few other things that kind of made sense as far as why people are moving in. You've already mentioned that boomerang effect where people moved out. They had a job in Chicago or wherever, and now they're moving back. They want to settle down. They want to get that family started, whatever that is. We're also seeing a lot of people have these remote hybrid jobs still. A lot of those went away, but there's still a ton of them out there. And so a lot of people can just live wherever. I remember I had a gentleman wanted to buy out in Western Iowa, and he just wanted to be in the middle of nowhere, in the sticks, found a house, and his job was remote. And I thought, I wonder if this guy knows he might not have very good internet out there in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of important when you have a hybrid job.
It is. You got Starlink now, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you're starting to get to where the satellite is much more predictable, but
it's expensive.
I had the exact same. It is, but there's no commute. I mean, Cal, do you remember me talking about, I have an old Foursquare in Old Des Moines. So, it's a 1905 house and our taxes are fine, but taxes are going up and the values are going up, which is great. But I remember doing like a year and a half ago, somebody's house, I think northwest of here ish, but it was outside of commuting distance. So they're not going to be working in Des Moines, having a job that you would drive to daily. But it was only about, hour and a half. So manageable. Like you could come into town a couple times a week if you needed to for a job. They had basically the same house, needed some upgrades to be matching what we had, but the house was like $82,000. And my house, I think I could sell for $400, $450. And it's a massive difference. And the taxes were like $600 a year. We're at like $4,600 a year. So yeah, it's amazing what you can do if you can make it work. Like you said, you got to, find area you like, but can you actually work remote with the internet that's provided? So.
Yeah. And even moving out to Winterset. I found out the hard way that it's more of a challenge. I knew they had fiber out there. I didn't realize that the fiber is to get a gigabyte of internet from MetroNet in Altoona runs you like $70. You're in town, made sense. And to do it in Winterset, it runs about $250. And that is a big, substantial difference. So I'm learning to live off of less internet, slower speeds. I will survive. I'm in a slower community. Things are they move slower. It's nicer. And, you think about, just that all the people. Now I can go outside, and my wife and I sat out on the front deck last night. It was beautifully quiet. I didn't hear anything. You could hear a car coming from a mile away. It was It was crazy.
love it.
I miss these things, as a kid. I grew up on a farm, but I don't think I even ever sat out on the front deck because my parents didn't do that. That wasn't something we did. Oh, it's just, I'm so excited to be there. So anyways, another thing, another reason for people moving in is also just the job growth. We talk about the city growing. There are, especially with the data centers that are going up, there's a lot of construction jobs out there for those jobs. They're not expected to, be there forever, because once those properties are up, they're not going to need those construction workers as much. And I think I saw that they only need 20 or 30 people to run a massive data center. And so, that's like, it's not a very big job growth, and it takes up an entire acre to put up one building. But there are a lot of companies putting up new commercial buildings, and they're needing those workers. And I think Tyson's putting up another business as well. So there's more positions coming in there. So definitely an opportunity to continue to grow the metro. And I think that's why we're seeing people moving into Des Moines and the surrounding area. So Charlie, who is, or can you think of someone right now who's moving in, and maybe give us a little explanation of their story that maybe somebody can relate to out there?
I think the ones that we're seeing a lot is either kids moving back to be with families, and they're not kids anymore, but you're 25, 30, 35, whatever, but you want to be back by family. Or, like you said, we've had a lot of people that want to get away from the expense and the drama, and they come here to where it's, perceived to be more quiet. But I've had a little bit of both. I've enjoyed seeing the kids that are now having kids moving back to be closer to mom and dad and cousins and everything else. But Iowa's got some great jobs. And between the insurance and tech and banking, there's just a lot of variety here, and it's a pleasant surprise. Arizona was one we talked about, and I've had a couple youngsters come from Arizona and just be tickled pink. They made great bang for their buck on their sale down there, and now they've got that down payment here. It's just, like you said, the money's so much easier to try and spread out and get footage. And our yards, people are amazed at how big our yards are, and we think they've gotten smaller. Well, what'd you get? Now you've got to mow more.
I got to mow last night, and I had a rider, and it was amazing. Yep, I'm no longer pushing that. I'm not going to push 2 acres, that's for sure.
Are you seeing younger, or are you seeing older move back?
Mainly older at this point. I don't think I've seen as many younger yet, but I also find it, you and I aren't that much different in age, but you have a lot more gray hair than I do.
I have more hair than you. Ha ha.
But I would say that I probably run into a few more first-time buyers than you do, just because it seems like the generation that I see, and you seem to have more move-up buyers, more older, wiser, smarter buyers. I'll pat you on the back and just say that for sure.
Yes,
yeah,
wiser.
See, yeah, exactly. But with that said, I think the ones moving in from out of state have been the grandparents, the uncles, the aunts, the ones that want to be around the grandkids or the nieces and nephews. That's more of what I've seen here recently. So to tie it to kind of what's going on right now in the market, one of the things that I found as I was reading up about this is, we obviously know the summer's peak moving season. It's one of the fastest growing times of the year. Like you said before, our winters are winter. They are not nice and summery hot, right? They're very cold. So not a lot of people are moving into Iowa at that time. Not a lot of houses are moving. Waukee.
Great time to buy, though. You get a better deal.
That's true.
Because nobody wants to move when there's, the ice storm. But that's right. It's still a good time to buy.
Waukee, Ankeny, Bondurant, Norwalk, Altoona, Grimes, Urbandale. These are all the areas where we're seeing a lot of out-of-state buyers that are wanting to come in, and they're wanting to buy a house. And then we look at the local buyers that maybe went to Iowa State, and they're coming down, they're just getting out of school and they're looking to buy that first house. Unfortunately, they're running into not just the other people that went to Iowa State and the others that are living in the area, but they're running into the people coming in from out of state. And now they're competing with a lot more buyers coming in from out of state, which is why our markets continue to stay very hot, even though the national headlines say markets are cooling, housing affordability is down, and prices are coming down too. We're not seeing that because we have so many out of state buyers coming in to drive those things up.
No, we're always the little bit of anomaly. We don't get the big shock waves like the coast do, where they're going to have big peaks and kind of steep valleys. We tend to have just little waves. We're going to see in our nice months, the demand's high because everybody's looking. And in the colder months, the demand's a little low. But it is a lot easier to kind of predict what we've got. But like you said, it depends on how many people are staying. So we have less college move out, or you got more people moving in for jobs. But it really does go in shifts. And it's kind of cool. You mentioned you're seeing more younger come in, or older come in.
Right.
And I kind of saw the opposite. And I'd say 4 months ago, that would have been the opposite for me. So the shifts are weird and they are real, but you just can't always predict them.
Well, again, 3 actionable takeaways as always. So number 1, we talk about this all the time, but make sure you get pre-approved before you fall in love with a listing. It matters even more when you're looking at a fast-growing suburb where you're competing against those out-of-state buyers. Number 2, if you're the one relocating, loop in a lender and make sure they understand remote closings or multi-state logistics, things that some people, or just make sure that they understand that your property is not a condo, right, Charlie? We just had a scenario where somebody didn't realize it was a condo until the last minute. The lender didn't, and they denied the customer last minute because they couldn't do condos, which was very unfortunate. So
details are important.
Very. And that's why you got to find a lender that's looking for those. And don't just compare sticker price to your old market. Obviously, if you're moving into town and you're also thinking about affordability, like we talked before, 10 to 15% lower in cost just to live here compared to some of the other areas. Compare Des Moines area to wherever you're coming from, knowing that you might be able to afford even more house. Maybe we can get you into a nicer property. So keep those things in mind as you're moving over and have your budget aligned, and then talk to a lender that's focused on your budget, not necessarily just focused on your purchase price. So to wrap up, the everyone's moving to Iowa headline oversimplifies it, but it's the real trend. A metro growth driven by affordability, remote work, and people coming back home is very real and shaping our fastest growing suburbs right now. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Subscribe to the podcast for more exciting episodes. And remember, stay curious. We'll see you next week on The Lofty Lender.